Hey everyone, back again. Jesse from Jaguar Sharks, posting another Patreon-only piece of content. So this one is a commentary track. This was a commentary track that I did just offhandedly one night uh, for the now forgotten Bloodshot movie. This thing came out in 2020. It was one of the first films. I posted a TikTok about this on the Jaguar Sharks Network TikTok page. I posted that it was one of the first films to go straight to VOD right as soon as it finished its theatrical run because it got pulled from theaters. Essentially, it was one of the first films dropped there because they needed to make their money back. When everybody went into lockdown, it was one of the first films. This and I can't remember what the other film was. Maybe it was The Hunt. They went to VOD very, very quickly. And I saw this in the theater with Seth and a couple other people, and it was a very empty theater. And I think it would have been empty regardless of whether COVID had happened or not, because the movie's not good. It's very disappointing. I was really looking forward to this one. I was really hyped up for it, and I was very disappointed. I hate saying that because I know the producer of the movie. I hate saying that. I generally like a lot of the people involved in this film, with the exception of Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel's the one where this is the straw that broke the camel's back for me, where I was just like, I hate Vin Diesel. And I heard stories about how he was not being cooperative on set, and I just even more of the movie just sank lower and lower for me. So I did a commentary track. We did a Bloodshot film rescue, Patreon only episode. I'll post that eventually. I decided to just do a commentary track because I wanted to get all of it out of my system. I've since kind of let it go. But this Patreon only commentary track hasn't gone anywhere except for the Patreon. This has been only there. And so it's just me. It might sound a little dull to the average person, but if you are a fan of the Bloodshot comics and you want to hear more about Bloodshot character, go ahead and listen to this. The comics have had a resurgence, as is the new thing happening with Valiant. They've been pulled in for distribution with a company called Alien Books. They are now distributing the Valiant series, and they're coming back into the fold. So if you really, really love this Valiant universe, I would suggest going reading the comics. The movie is barely an adaptation of its source material. I mean, you can do that. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is barely an adaptation of its source material, but those are James Gunn movies, and he gets away with it because he's a good writer. This Bloodshot movie has a mountain of problems, and it's mainly because of things involving the production rights getting pulled from various characters, problems with actors, specifically Vin Diesel on set, and it was problematic, troubled production. It's disappointing. There was supposedly plans for a sequel. That has all since evaporated. We're 4 years down the line, and there's not been a peep. I don't see this getting a sequel. If anything, I would expect a reboot. Or restarts, more than likely at some point in the future. Sony owns the rights to the Bloodshot character. I don't think they're doing anything with it, so more than likely we'll see the rights lapse back to the Valiant brand, and somebody else will take up the reins and handle the character. I hope so, at least. So, here it is. This is the Bloodshot commentary that I did back in 2020. Enjoy. Hello, Film Rescue listeners. This is Jesse. Welcome to the commentary track for Bloodshot, produced by Sony Pictures. We did a film rescue on this a couple months back, but I still feel like there's some crap I need to get out of my system. And I figured if there's anybody that probably would be worthwhile to have a commentary on this film, it would be me, because for those who don't know, I go to conventions as the character of Bloodshot. I've been doing that since 2013, something like that. So I've, kind of reshaped my body to look like the character from the book. So I know the ins and outs of this character. I've done this character for many, many years, and I was very disappointed when the movie finally came out. So I still feel like there's some crap I need to get out of my system, so I figured I'd just do this commentary track. We're doing this a little bit more often with films on Film Rescue because we're all quarantined at the moment. We can't meet in person, so it's easy for us to just do things on our own. So I'm going to do a commentary track just by myself because I think I'm the only person that's willing to put up with this film again. And I like to remind everybody I have paid for this film 3 times already, so I get a little leeway to complain. I've mellowed on this movie a little bit. It's not the worst thing ever. It's just a very standard, passable movie. It's just dumb all the way through. the books are better. I'll put in some book recommendations at the end of the film, but for now, I'm just gonna do a commentary track about the film. It's my first time watching it in a while, but I figured you guys would enjoy just hearing what I have to say and my positives and my negatives regarding the film. So here we go. Begin the film. Begin the film when as soon as the Sony Picture logo comes in. Commentary starts now. Brought to you by the good people at Sony. I think one of the big problems with this film is having Sony be the production company. It really kind of hurt the movie because Sony doesn't have the best track record. They put out some good films. They've done some good stuff. Into the Spider-Verse. I just recently watched a film they did called Greyhound with Tom Hanks, a World War II battleship film. It's very good. I highly encourage everybody to watch both of those. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen Into the Spider-Verse, but not many people have seen Greyhound because it's on one of the worst streaming services, which is Apple Plus, and that's the only place you can get it at the moment. This right here, Bona Film Group. There was a lot of production companies involved with this. Most notably, Chinese production companies. They were involved in producing it as well. So if it feels like things have been shaped for the film for the Chinese market, that's because it was. Now, big negative for me, right from the first shot. We've discussed this on Film Rescue. What's referred to as the shithole filter. The piss and shit filter of gray, yellow, and green to illustrate that the world that they're living in at the moment is ugly and filthy and gross. Mombasa, Kenya does not look like this. I know several people that have been there. It does not look like this. You can make the argument that, it's meant to be, it's a hallucination inside his head. I get it. But it just, I'm very sick of it and I'm very over it. So first shot immediately turned me off. It also doesn't make any sense why Vin Diesel at this point is operating on his own. Operators like this, they operate in either pairs or squads, either 2 or 4. It never makes much sense why he's on his own. But, I don't know. Very cool shot. Very, very much akin to Dread 2012. One way you can tell this is PG-13 is because in many, many shots of the film, action and reaction are in separate shots. If you look at like Jackie Chan's films, like the fight scenes, action and reaction, like the hits and the punches and the kicks, they're all in the same shot. So you feel the impact. The problem is when you cut away to coverage, it's a surefire sign that they didn't want to imply that, oh, he actually did shoot him, because you see it on screen. It's a way of sneaking around an R rating, because I'm fairly certain this was originally meant to be an R-rated film. There's a lot of shots in the deleted scenes and there's shots in the outtakes that show that this was at one point meant to be an R-rated film. Like the guy that gets shot in the truck in the tunnel, there was a reaction of him getting blasted by Vin Diesel with the twin pistols. There was a shot that was filmed, but it was cut. And it goes, you have the action of him shooting through the window, but you don't see the guy get hit. I'll comment on that when we get to it. What kind of sinks this scene is that we have no understanding of who either of these guys actually are. Even in a vacuum, not knowing anything about the comics, you don't have any kind of grounding point for what this is. That's kind of what ruins the scene, because it doesn't lead to anything or mean anything. And upon rewatch, this is my 4th time watching this film, this isn't real. It's not real, so it absolutely means nothing. It really doesn't make much sense why she's on the landing strip. That feels like a dialogue scene that got cut short. Now Aaron made a note of this. Like, pick out any Vin Diesel movie right here. Why would he pass off his luggage to somebody? Okay, name a Vin Diesel movie. He takes off a shirt, camo jacket with a white tank top underneath, runs into the arms of a large-breasted blonde woman. Name the Vin Diesel movie. It's this scene is kind of in all of Vin Diesel's films. It's yeah. And the only connection they have to Harbinger is that sweet car, the 1960s Ford Mustang, the Harbinger car. Harbinger was sold off to Paramount, and because of that being excised, there's a huge chunk of the film that's basically just missing because they had to excise all references to Harbinger. The only way they could have any Easter egg at all with Harbinger is the car. No Toyo Harada cameo, no reference to Peter Stanchek. Everything is gone. That's why the movie feels like it's missing pieces. It's like the movie feels like it's just missing elements. It's missing that depth. And also, it doesn't make sense why he's immediately... Oh, that's a weird shot. I just don't get that. But yeah, it doesn't make sense why they're off doing this. And hey, PG-13 nudity. Go R-rated. You could have seen everything, but no. Now, the scars on his body, I pointed this out in our film rescue. If he has nanites in his blood that repair his scars, why does he still have the scars later on? That really doesn't add up or make sense. It's just, there's so many of these things where it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's odd. Now, the moment I knew this movie was going to be a nightmare for me, I recognized editing very quickly. There's a cut coming up, and you'll notice it right away when I point it out, that you can tell this movie was going to be an editor's nightmare. It's coming up, and that. Notice how you don't see Vin Diesel's stomach. Right, they're covering up. Yeah, it's because apparently Vin Diesel, he's over 50, and he's got a bit of a belly on him. Now, that's fine. I mean, I have nothing against that, but the problem is, I think, like I said in the film rescue episode, having Vin Diesel in this film really hurts the movie. It's 75% of the film's problems. If you had a different actor in there that was younger, more in shape, able to do all the things they needed to do for the film, it would really, really rescue a lot of the film. Like I said, Jared Keeso would be a good choice. From Letterkenny, he's in pristine shape. The guy's shaped like a goddamn sculpture. Dan Stevens, who is in The Guest and also in Downton Abbey, he'd be fantastic. Like, there's so many people, or even like Robert Pattinson. I could imagine him. Like, everyone says, hey, he'd be terrible as Batman, but he's actually kind of a perfect choice for Batman. Like, anyone can bulk up and get in shape. You know, it just matters actor quality. This fight scene isn't terrible. It's just, I wish it was less close-ups. This does feel a bit like the elevator fight in Captain America Winter Soldier. That's pretty good. Wham. That 80 yard. Yeah. Hey, it's Toby Kebbell. I'm sorry, Jivenich Kennington Bull. Yeah. Film Rescue Show, we have our amalgam human being going. Jivenich Kennington Bull, these charisma-free actors. We just watched the 2014 RoboCop last night and did a commentary on it. That was the gag through the entire movie, just little to no character or personality. I'm sure they're nice guys. I'm sure they're wonderful people, but they're just not leading men. They're just not. I'm not sure why they get these parts. This scene. The psycho killer scene. First off, I hate the post-processing on this. The green. I really, really hate the green. It makes it visually ugly and unappealing. It makes your eyes hurt. Like, right, that shot right there is like, I get it. I understand, but it's just so ugly. Like yellow and blue, like it's two colors that are not meant to go together. This is just kind of, unfortunately, this I think is just kind of silly. It's just a little too silly. I like the Talking Heads and I like this song, but it really doesn't fit with Bloodshot. And not just that, it's neither of these characters have had any development. So this emotionally engaging scene where we see his wife get murdered doesn't matter because we haven't spent enough time with them. Like, just writing 101, we are only 10 minutes in. We literally just hit the 10-minute mark. That doesn't include the opening logo. So we're about, like, what, 8.5 minutes in? We're already jumping into the murder of the wife. It kind of hurts because we don't know what anyone's doing, what anyone's motivation is, how anyone relates to each other, or anybody's likes, dislikes, personal interests, hobbies. Like, I bring it up all the time, the red letter media test. Describe this character without saying what kind of occupation they have, what kind of costume they wore, or role in the film. Describe the character as if you'd never seen the film. You can't do it with any of these characters. Any of them. There's not enough. There needs to be more. And I think maybe if they'd had the Harbinger connection, maybe there could have been more. I like Tallulah Riley. I really think she's a very good actress, but I think that she really could have been better used if they'd given her more to do. Well, somebody saw No Country for Old Men. If you think 6 inches is a lot, then apparently you're too small, bro. I'm not gloating. I'm just saying. No, what? They're all trying. They're all trying, but it's just not working. If this was the opening scene, if they just not even had the shootout in the opening, if this was the opening, this would have been better. Like, just jump into it like, oh my god, somebody just got murdered. Like, that would be a great opening. If you cut the first, if you either, flop it, crop it, drop it. You cut the fat. And this, PG-13 death. Oh god. And again, the PG-13 also really hurts this movie. If you had seen her brain splatter across the wall, like that kind of murder, if you'd really seen that, it really would have helped the movie. It really would have saved a lot. I'm not trying to say like this movie would be great if it was a gore fest. It's just, you need to commit. Some swearing would also be really good too. A good scene of somebody in distress is the original Saw when Carrie Elways is trying to shoot. I can't remember the guy's name. Yeah, and blam, we go into finally we're in the credits. Yeah, but like when Carrie Elways is freaking out in the first Saw and he's trying to shoot with the unloaded gun and he's freaking out and crying. That's a great example of like someone losing it. He really should have lost it more in that scene, but he didn't. And of course, the white outfit is meant to be there for the white skin that the character has in the comics. Yeah, Valiant! Valiant Entertainment! Say Valiant. It's worth noting Valiant didn't have much influence on the film. They really didn't, unfortunately. I wish they'd used the actual logo from the comics, but oh well. And huge tease right there. Huge tease, because in the book he has red eyes and white skin, but for some reason they just didn't do it in this film, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but it really does feel like the movie is missing pieces. And our goddess and savior, Isa Gonzalez, she's wonderful. I believe she's meant to be representative of the medic that's in the first arc that Dwayne Swarzynski wrote. I think that's the case. I can't be sure. It's a cool idea for the breathing apparatus. See, I like KT as a character, and her prequel story, Into the Fire, and the novelization is pretty good. I wish they had given her more to do, unfortunately. Now, this scene, I pointed out all the time that camera work, the way in which you establish camera movement is very critical to a scene's tone. This is handheld, but the problem is handheld is meant to illustrate tension or unease or something like that. But the problem is that Vin Diesel, he's not really tense, he's just kind of confused. But this really should have been like on a tripod or a dolly or something. It really didn't need to be handheld. Whenever I see handheld in films like this, it always feels like they did it because they had a very short production schedule, or they were just trying to get through to the next thing, because there's a lot of action in this film, and a lot of the action does take a lot of time. But I really don't know why they did this. I don't know. It really should have been a little bit more less handheld. Now, when it comes to this scene, I like this scene in isolation. But upon a rewatch, it was really just broken, because this is all staged. It's all fake. And that kind of sinks the movie and kind of makes everybody reprehensible. And yeah, it's kind of a mess. It's very pretty shot. Very pretty. You can tell it's a Hollywood movie because there's a lot of blue and orange. That's kind of a cliche, is that somebody figured out about 10 or 15 years ago that the opposing colors are visually appealing to an audience. That's blue and orange, red and green, obviously for Christmas, black and white, having colors in opposition is visually appealing to the eye. I mean, look at the posters for Mad Max Fury Road. It's a lot of teal and orange. Yeah. Then again, that film is near perfect in my opinion. That's the one film that kind of gets away with it, because it's set in the desert, therefore it's going to have orange. Now, I'd like to comment on the score a little bit. I like Steve Jablonsky. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy, but before we saw this film, we had watched Transformers 2 for a film rescue episode, and I was kind of burned out on Steve Jablonsky because this whole score really does feel like Transformers. It really does. And it really, really, really hurts the film, because I would have preferred something a little more dense of a score. Jablonsky loves that delayed guitar. He really loves that delayed electric guitar. He really loves it, but it does kind of feel a little too Transformers, in my opinion. And I pointed out in the film rescue episode that this is all a script. This is all just them just going through the motions. So they have to do this every single time. I said, like, in the script, why not? If you can program anything into his brain, why don't you just program in that he knows that he works for them and he got killed on a previous assignment? Why don't you just program that in? There's really no reason why they can't do that. It's just, like I always say, it's because the movie needs to happen. Now, I will say that it's kind of cool. The nanite appearance, that is very cool. It's reminiscent of the book. It's pretty accurate. But again, it's handheld. Like, you cut into this and it's all digital and it's all very, very solidly structured and very visually kind of cool. And then you go back out into the real world after this CGI. Very cool appearance, very cool. And then blam, we're back into handheld. Why? This should be on a tripod. This should be on a tripod or a dolly. And just it just feels like rush production schedule. I don't know. That's pretty good, guy. Pretty good line. The idea of the heat in the center of the chest, I mean, it's there because it's generating heat because it needs to. Also, why is Vin Diesel wearing black? Because black is slimming. Um, the idea of the nanites generating heat, that's there because they don't ever have him shirtless in the film. In the book, the red spot is a scar that's there to it's a scar that never completely heals. It's there because the nanites need something to constantly repair. If they're not repairing something, they'll continue to constantly grow and they'll exponentially increase, kind of like the blob, where they'll grow and grow and grow into what's referred to as the gray goo effect, where they'll continue to consume anything around them. So without that red spot, the nanites will continue to exponentially increase. They constantly keep recreating themselves. The glow is there because he's never shirtless in the film, because Vin Diesel has a little bit of a pudge and they never want to show him shirtless. Which is why it makes me kind of chuckle whenever I see the Louis LaRosa artwork that was done of Vin Diesel with the red spot and shirtless and muscles everywhere. I'm thinking to myself, Vin Diesel doesn't look like that. He really doesn't. Like I said, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I don't know. At least the artwork was good. Now this right here, Tibbs being blind. This is very cool. Great idea. But why is it that why is it that they didn't apply this? Like, he's supposed to be a sniper. Okay, you have a sniper that doesn't snipe. Like, why isn't he like the Revenants in Doom 2016, where he has like a sniper rifle on his shoulder? He can snipe whenever he wants. He can just aim it wherever he wants. You didn't really need that cutaway, but okay. Now, upon rewatching this, I am realizing there is another gigantic plot hole. So the nanites can basically repair and fix basically anything. So why is it that you have wounded warriors with missing limbs? Why not just inject them with a small batch of nanites to grow back their legs, or to grow back their lungs, or to grow back their eyes? You could literally do that. I mean, Bloodshot has done that in the comics. There is a storyline where somebody gets infected with the nanites. He smacks the person so hard he breaks their neck, and then immediately fixes their neck with his own nanites. It's not quite made clear why they don't do that. I guess because Harding wants to keep them under his thumb. But it's kind of insulting to wounded warriors because these are professional soldiers that have served their country, and now they're just like these bitches to this company. And I don't know. It's backhandedly offensive. I don't know. I know several people that are military guys. I've asked them if they were offended, and they're like, "Nah, we're not offended." It's just they were just kind of annoyed by it. The novelization does go a little bit more in depth in terms of his nightmares, in terms of his inner psyche, whereas the film doesn't quite get there. It's really, like I said, it's really missing those pieces. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee. I'm recording this on a Sunday morning. This is pretty good. I like this idea, him punching him so hard that he punches through the bag. But this also, it creates a giant logic error, is that if he can punch this hard, if he's this physically strong, why is it that anybody he punches, he's not just like punching holes through people's chests or making their heads explode? It's the PG-13 rating. There's that Transformers soundtrack coming in. We said on Film Rescue that this doesn't quite make sense, because if you think about it, has he punched this pillar like 1,000 times already? And then they have to take out the pillar and replace the whole goddamn thing within a day. Also worth noting that in the comics, the nanites, they do the work, yes, but it's mostly him. He's the one controlling the nanites. They don't ever really take control on their own. Why they would have weights like this, I have no idea. Like right there, his scars on his shoulder. Those scars wouldn't be there anymore. Like they would be gone. Why are they there? It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But in terms of the nanites and how they affect him and how they interact with him, he still feels pain. He still feels it. Like there's a whole sequence in, I believe, the second storyline where he gets his face literally telekinetically ripped off. He feels every second of that pain. That is not. I don't think that was Isaac Gonzalez in that previous shot. I think that was actually the double. Now, this idea right here, the underwater Tai Chi, this is a great idea. I wish it was all done in a wide shot. I wish why this is edited like this. It's like, oh my god, just hold on one shot. Because the problem is, like, you want to show this amazing ballet underwater, but it doesn't quite register emotionally because it's chopped up to hell. No shot is longer than 2.5 seconds. Yeah, it's like it's just chopped up to hell. It's and she's a gorgeous woman. You want to show that off? You want to have her be the TNA aspect of your film? Okay, I understand it, but that means you have to not chop up the film like you're running across a cheese grater. It's also never quite established if she actually is able to recycle water through that rebreather, or if it's just like an extra pair of lungs. By the way, that water level is really high. I like the tattoo on her arms. That's pretty cool. Looks like a squid. Once again, editing counts for a lot. Like these two actors, they're almost never in the same shot. There's the wide right there. But that you could have done this whole scene from a wide and it would have registered better. Once again, this whole film, it sinks it by remembering, oh yeah, it's just a script. I like the lighting in this scene. It's very pretty. Feels very Blade Runner with the reflective lights of the water. There is a bit in the books. I believe it's in the Bloodshot and Hardcore storyline, Mission Improbable, where the character of Armstrong, who's also a Valiant character, he's an immortal. He's also a drunk. He interacts with Bloodshot, and they start to have a fight. And Armstrong says, "Man, you seem really, really angry. You really could have a drink." And Bloodshot says, "I can't. The nanites diffuse the alcohol in my system." And Armstrong gets really upset, and he's like, "Oh my god, you poor guy!" And he hugs him. And Bloodshot's like, "What are you doing? Get off of me!" So Bloodshot can't actually drink alcohol because the alcohol doesn't affect him. He can't get drunk. This doesn't really make much sense because, again, if you really think about it, not only is it all a script, it also, you could have just programmed into his brain, hey, go ahead and go after this guy. There's really no reason why he had to discover this now. They could have sent him out right away. The purpose of Bloodshot in the books is he is an asset for Project Rising Spirit. It's referred to as Project Rising Spirit in the comics. In the film, it's referred to as RST. I think the reason is because of PRS guitars. I think that's what Seth said. They're not that big of a company. I'm not sure why they changed it. But yeah, it's like they send him out on missions that are considered suicide missions. Like, there's nobody else that could do this assignment. The problem is that also, why would they have a vehicle like this in Kuala Lumpur? But Jesus. But his missions are always suicide missions. Like, no one else can do it. There's no way in, no way out. Like, he's meant to constantly take enough so much punishment that no ordinary person could do it. But these assignments they send him out on, they're really not that bad. They're not that horrible. And another thing is, why not send him out with the rest of the crew? In the book, and also in the comic, that this crew is referred to as the Chainsaw Gang. They're biomechanically enhanced people. This is kind of cool that he connects to the internet. That's why he's not turned on all the time, I don't know. But in terms of the books, he interacts with a group called Chainsaw. They're kind of like early versions of Bloodshot, and he eventually fights them and kills them in the second storyline. But with Chainsaw, like, if you're gonna say these guys interact, why not have them interact as a team? Like, they're a squad, like a 4-man squad. Why not send them out together to do all this stuff? Why just send him? He's not hunting down like the president. He's hunting down an ex-employee of RST. Don't park in front of the jet. You need to get the jet out of the hangar. Once again, 80 yard. Half this film is 80 yard, unfortunately. This is a Matrix moment where Trinity learns how to fly the helicopter. Yeah, it's the same scene. Yeah. And when we did, you couldn't afford an actual plane. All right. Also worth noting, the character he's going after is Martin Axe. The character name of Axe is from the comics, although he's drastically changed in this film. In the book, he's in the original run from the 1990s, sort of like a tech genius, very maniacal. In the Josh Dysart run, which is from the Harbinger, he wrote Harbinger. In that run, he was sort of like Julian Assange, trying to expose Project Rising Spirit for all the horrible things they were doing. He's just a grunt. I don't know. Now, if you think about it, these are just ordinary guys he's hunting down. Like, these people have done nothing wrong. So it kind of makes Bloodshot indirectly the real bad guy. Because there's no moral center to the film, which kind of hurts the movie, because he isn't hunting like terrorists or villains. Like, they're just security personnel. Like, they've done nothing wrong. Also, how is he affording these guys? Like, private security, like if you go back to the second Iraq War, Blackwater would hire their services out to anybody that was willing to pay for them. They would charge egregious amounts of money for their service. I will say, I did see this scene at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. Dinesh Shamdasani did show me this scene, the early version of it. It wasn't totally done. I do like the idea of this scene. Him jackknifing the trailer in order to stop him from getting out of the tunnel. I like this. And of course, the flower in the tunnel, it's meant to cover up the fact that he doesn't have the white skin yet. I thought that was going to be like a precursor to him getting the white skin later in the film, and he eventually does, but we'll get to that. And like I said, I really love Dinesh. He's a wonderful guy, and I love the fact that he finally got his movie made because they've been working on this for a long, long time. But what we got was just, you know, because of certain people in charge and the problems with production, it feels like ironically, like a tractor trailer with 12 separate wheels all going in completely different directions. I don't know. Also, they're in Budapest. Why would it have English siding on the side of the truck? It's the little things. Why is that 80 yard? Apparently the cars are soundproof too. Okay. Again, action and reaction are in two separate shots. There's a lot of ADR in this scene, and I don't know why. Let it be known, I had nothing to do with the production of this film. At one point, I was possibly going to be on the film. A guy I worked with named Paul Postal, I worked with him on Veep Season 4. I do a lot of film and TV, lighting, and set work. And he was at one point offered the job to do the gaffer work on this film. And he didn't actually get the job, but he said if he did get the job, he would bring me along. But then the budget was so low that they couldn't hire him. But because they couldn't hire him, they didn't hire anybody from outside of Cape Town, South Africa. God, this editing. You'll notice the action and reaction are in two separate shots. Not enough reaction shots. If you want to show how skilled your actor is as a fighter, you would do it in a one shot, a one take, or something like that. Like I remember I just recently watched the third Triple X movie, which is god awful. But in that film, Tony Jaa and Donnie Yen are in it, and they have amazing fight scenes, and they have like a couple of cuts in their fight scenes because they're very skilled actors and very good combatants. But when you get to Vin Diesel fight scenes, and by the way, he has full bars inside. He has full bars inside of a tunnel, and he has video chat. Yeah, fuck you. But yeah, he has when you get to Vin Diesel's fight scene in Triple X3, it's like 55 cuts because he's not a skilled fighter and he's not in the best shape. It's just, it is what it is. I don't know, is he? Why there would be this much security around just an ordinary tech guy doesn't quite make sense. I don't know. Now, if this was the whole scene of just the super slow motion, I'm not sure if this was the Phantom camera or not, but if this was the whole scene, him just plowing through, if the whole fight scene started here, cut the first part of it, just start it here, him running into frame, like this right here, that's your first scene of him going after these guys, great. Like, this would be great. In isolation, this whole slow motion scene is amazing. It's pretty good. Like, this is pretty good stuff. Like, this is really, really well done. This is where this feels a little bit Michael Bay-ish. I'm not sure if I like that, but I'll take it. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, if this was the entire fight scene, showing how skilled he is as a fighter and how powerful he is and how strong he is and his regenerative abilities, like this is really all you needed. This is all you needed. You didn't even need the first half of the film, or first half of the film, first half of the scene. Like this is great. I really, really like this part. This is great. And yes, it is lit in red because we can't show blood. Wham! That's pretty good. Yeah, he's not getting back up. This is a fun little moment. Bloodshot in the actual comics would totally do this. Yeah, that'll totally do it. Yeah, he'd do that. Now, something that kind of is a logic error right here is if the front windshield is is bulletproof, why exactly? Why exactly what is, because not just meant to be bulletproof, they're also meant to be explosive proof. But somehow this still somehow does something to it. I don't know. Very cool. I'm pretty sure this is reminiscent of when Bloodshot did get his face ripped off in the Harbinger Wars storyline. And you'll notice right here, action. You see the guns firing. Cut to a second shot of the guns firing. You don't see the guy getting hit. PG-13. Yeah. And because that's bathed in red, and because he's a robot man, they got away with it. I do like that the flares fade out with the fight scene. That's, simple trick, but it's effective. And right here, it's like they know that he's been out doing this stuff. Like, why didn't they go with him? Like, why? Sure, why not? Yeah, there's no real reason why he didn't just go with him. Now, the way in which the nanites work in the book compared to the film is that in the original book, I believe he consumed electricity or metal or something like that. It would sort of like regenerate by the nanites feeding on something. In the 2012 run forward, he has to consume protein, chicken, steak, beef, etc., etc. And so it makes it more difficult for him to maintain his physical power because trying to get a hold of a chicken leg in the middle of combat, very difficult. So it added a little bit more tension to the scene. For some reason, KT is now having a change of heart. I'm not quite sure why. It really doesn't add up why she decides to change her mind. I think Seth pointed out in the our episode for Film Rescue that if she was his psychologist, like making sure he was psychologically capable of reintegrating back with the crew, that would make more sense as to why she has a change of heart. As it is, doesn't really make much sense. But in the 2012 books, he has to consume protein, like food, like actual food. Blam. But by doing that, it adds a little bit more tension. There's even a part in the second story arc written by Dwayne Straczynski where Bloodshot actually ate a guy. He ate a prisoner in his cell. You don't actually see it on a page, but you see a guy's arm sticking through a cell, and the nanites speak to him with a voice, and they tell him, if you find any protein anywhere, eat it now. And he sees a guy's arm sticking through the bars of a jail cell, and you see him from a distance leaning over, and it's like, okay, yeah. Now, from what I understand, is that originally in the book, they were supposed to have not Chainsaw. It was originally supposed to be Hardcore, Harbinger Active Resistance Division, which is the sort of Suicide Squad of the Valiant universe. Basically, they have these brain implants that allow them to basically download powers, and the downloading those powers allows them to have them for a short period of time. Problem is, it releases radiation into the brain, and they don't have a very long shelf life. The average hardcore member lasts about 2 years. I think originally it was supposed to be hardcore, and because of changes in the script and because of changes in who was in charge and the production problems and Harbinger being excised over to Paramount, they ended up having to change it to Chainsaw. And they don't actually refer to them as Chainsaw in the film. I'm not sure why. Like, why not give them a name? In the novelization, they're referred to as Chainsaw. Because if you look at, and you can tend to tell it was meant to be hardcore because Sam Heughan does look a lot like a young Charlie Palmer from the comics, who's the leader of hardcore. Although if you're going to have, I even said if you're going to have anybody play Charlie Palmer in any of these movies, Bryan Cranston would be perfect because he looks just like Charlie Palmer. Now, I don't know why he doesn't like Bloodshot. I don't know. And also, by the way, he's never referred to as Bloodshot by name in the film. The only time he's ever referred to is in Tibbs's retinal display, where it says Project Bloodshot, or in the opening where Harding refers to him as Project Bloodshot. They never actually refer to him by name as Bloodshot. They always just call him Ray. And I think that has to do with the Chinese censorship in that you can't use the term or word blood in a film for some ethical reason. And by the way, in the novelization, this scene is way more graphic. Way more graphic. They basically like chop up his whole body and turn him down into base proteins and then resynthesize him using the nanites. It's way more graphic. And also in the original books, he's actually in a chair, very much like the Total Recall chair where you get your brain wiped or you get your brain implants, or the chair in the original RoboCop where he has to sit upright and he has like plugs and tubes all shoved into his body. It's way more grotesque and way more obscene. And that would add so much. Like, they're really just laying into this guy. But as it is, it's like, it looks like he just got like a dental filling. It doesn't look good. And we're back to the piss and shit filter. It really hurts the movie with the PG-13. It really needed to have that. I will say this is kind of cool. The idea that they're completely reshaping everything. But the problem is that it doesn't quite make sense in terms of the logic, because what you're seeing on screen is shot like it's with a camera. But why? Who's viewing this inside his brain? I don't know. This is one of those let it go moments. I don't know. But this also, like I said, it brings up a problem of, if you can program all of this, you can program everything. Why can't you just program into his brain he works for RST? Why can't you just program that? It would help. Like, have it already be programmed into his brain that he works for RST, and then you go back and he finds files somehow by hacking into the server that he's actually done this multiple times, and they keep wiping his memory. That would be better, because then it would make more sense, because then he would realize how much horrible shit he's really done. As it stands, he doesn't really have much agency. And now we repeat Act 1. Like, this is where the movie kind of nosedived entirely for me. I was kind of with it up until this point right here. Up until this point, I was kind of with it. I had problems, but I was kind of okay. This is where, like, who's viewing that? This is kind of where the movie sank for me, because you realize they're just going to replay Act 1. It really does hurt the film. And also the problem of it being a script, it really hurts the film, because one nudge to the left or right, because they keep changing shit. They don't show him the same memory over and over and over again. It's a little bit different each time. One nudge to the left or right might change what he does. Like, it's such a razor's edge that it seems like it's too much effort for too little payoff. Just program in and he works for them. Just you could do that. That's in the books. It's in the comics that he's programmed into his brain that he works for them. Now, when we did our commentary track for RoboCop 2014 the other night, I made the note that Gary Oldman in that film looks exactly like uh, Guy Pearce's character. It's the same glasses as well. They look exactly the same. I'm starting to think that this film copied a lot from the 2014 RoboCop, because there's a lot of scenes that are egregiously similar, almost to the point of like, wow, that's copyright infringement. I was kind of shocked. And by the way, 2014 RoboCop is terrible. Also, it kind of brings up a problem of logic of, if you have these guys knowing that they are RST employees, they're ex-employees of this company, then why is it that everyone's still working there? Wouldn't somebody go to the cops? Like, oh yeah, we're going to hunt down all of our old employees. Is somebody going to be like, hey, this is really sketch? Like, if I was to quit and go work somewhere else, you're going to hunt me down? Like, that seems really, really, really kind of horrifying. Yeah, I don't know. Did you go fix that pillar yet, KT? You need to do that. The concrete needs to dry over the next 3 weeks. I will say, Sam Heughan, I'm sure he's a wonderful, wonderful person, but he really is trying a little too hard to be the maniacal bad guy. Because he really does seem like there's, I pointed it out in our film rescue that there's 4 kinds of people that join the military. This is referenced in the Jack Reacher novel One Shot, written by Lee Child, which is very good. I highly encourage everybody to read it. The movie is okay. It's all right. It's not great. There's 4 kinds of people that join the military. 1, family tradition, people that join because their family members do it. 2, true patriots, people that believe in the mission and want to do something good for the world. 3, people that just need a job. And then 4, people that just want to murder with, want to murder legally. Dalton kind of feels like that. Kind of like he's psychologically unstable, which is kind of odd, putting him at the forefront and in control of this whole group. Why is she wearing a crop top? I do think they tried a little too hard to make her like super hot, but it's like, she's Isaac Gonzalez. She's already hot. I mean, I like looking at her, but it does feel a little awkward to be putting her into that scene like that. I don't know. See, we're repeating Act 1. We know all this stuff. And in terms of like the tragic element of their manipulating him, the problem is that tragedy comes from liking the characters. If you're not invested with the characters on an emotional level like this, it really sinks the movie. This is kind of where the movie derails, in my opinion, because you're not, the only person you're really emotionally invested with is KT, and she's not even the main character. This is kind of where the film falls apart. Because if you'd had more time, and Seth points it out all the time, like, if you have just like one scene of your characters just kind of like dicking off and having fun and getting to know each other, it adds so much more character development. The problem is that you could basically excise Act 1 and we're back to square one. Like, it really changes nothing because he has his memory wiped. Yeah, there was a prequel storyline that was written by Valiant called Bloodshot Rising Spirit, which was not great. It has good ideas, but it's not great. They keep trying to implant new memory caps, and that's totally a reuse shot. He uses the same goddamn truck? Okay. But yeah, he uses they keep implanting new memories and try to use new identities to try to encourage him to fight, but each time it keeps failing because he always eventually finds out that it's all a script. He eventually will find out. So they've been doing this multiple times for the course of 5 years, as is later established. So is he just dumb? If he's been doing this for 5 years, why isn't he not just going to do what he has to do? I don't know. I think that's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And I don't think that's a mobile game. Hey, Kevin Van Hook, Dinesh Shamdasani, Don Perlin. It is kind of funny. I don't know why they didn't have Bob Layton in there. I was kind of shocked by that. It did make me happy when I saw those names. I will say I did like that. So little dialogue actually occurs on screen. Most of it feels like they cut away to some kind of B-roll and then they have somebody saying it in ADR. I don't know if the film was hacked up like that intentionally, but it certainly feels like it. In the book, the novelization, this is much more expounded upon. This is given a lot more time. Something tells me they didn't have Vin Diesel this day. Guess they don't ever show him. Yeah. That is something that has happened in the books. The first issue that Dwayne Straczynski wrote, that first storyline, he pulls that same trick to get into a Taliban compound, and then takes out the Taliban from the inside. Now, I do like Wiggins. I think Wiggins is a good character. He's kind of like Axe from the book, a little bit, but I'm not quite sure why they didn't make him more of a major character, because he survives till the end of the film, so I'm not sure why they introduced him in the back half of the film. That dialogue did not match up at all. It's not that hard to get open source code. It's really not that hard. This kind of like also hurts them. What is she wearing? Dear God. Once again, I don't think they had Vin Diesel for this. This is much more graphic in the novelization. It's much more graphic. Here, we're only seeing from computer screens because, hey, PG-13. Why are you shocked by this? Because it's like, you've been doing this for 5 years. You'd be bored by this point. God, so much ADR. Maybe it was because they hired actors that were from South Africa and they had thick accents. Maybe that's what it was. But I don't know. Did he plan this? He's in hiding. Did he plan this? Hide under your desk or something. Once again, action and reaction in two separate shots. I'm just getting kind of bored watching this now. It is why I had that little explosive symbol was just kind of goofy to me. I don't think people realize how devastating an EMP going off would really. Wait a minute. Why is there still power down there? People don't realize how devastating an EMP would actually be. Like, people be trapped on like public transportation, water would shut off, no internet connection, no communications. People in hospitals on life support, they'd be dead instantly. It would be bad. And this movie kind of just brushes over that, unfortunately. He does get hit by an EMP blast in the first end of the first storyline, but when that happens, it's out in the middle of the desert. There's nobody else around, so nobody else gets hurt. Now, this is what I was talking about with like the not having the lack of Bloodshot in the Bloodshot film. Right here is perfect precedent to have the character with the white skin and the red eyes, because they revive him with this electrical charge. There's a reason you could get to the white skin and the red eyes. Like the EMP fucks up his nanites, and then it's like, oh, sorry, man, you look a little different now. Then he looks into the mirror and he sees like actual Bloodshot. That would be great. Like, that would be good precedent to have that happen. But it doesn't. Does Bloodshot need to eat anything? Because he hasn't eaten a single thing. God, there's so much handheld here. I'm not sure why they have this pillar on the left-hand side of the screen. It's odd. He's talking about things that we should have seen for real in the film. Because Bloodshot has been shot in the head multiple times in the comics. He's even got his head chopped off, and he still survives. I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't survive if you dropped a wrecking ball on top of his entire body, but he is very, very hard to kill. You know what would have been great for this? Change the color temperature of each scene more than just the green. Change it to like orange, blue, purple. Change it all the way around. Make it a rainbow. I mean, why not? It would that way it's diverse, it's interesting, it makes it unique. Each time is a different color temperature and a different tone. That would diversify them more. Does everybody else know that? Because the only person that knows it's a vendetta is him. But okay. This is kind of where the moral center of the film should have come in, because if you think about it, if he's been doing this for 5 years, he's killed like hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So, and all those people are not bad people. They're not bad people. Like, he's been killing innocent people. In the book, it's established that he's taking on like terrorists and corrupt private contractors. He's taking on people that are like really awful individuals. He's still, morally compromised, but he does feel guilty about it. He does feel bad about it. But right here is where he could introduce oh my God, I'm a murderer. He could introduce that into the film. And then he decides to make amends for it later on by taking out the actual people that are doing the horrible things. Like giving him that chance to have a moral change. But it just doesn't happen. Now, this shot right here, I always feel like this moment should have been a Batman moment. Then he turns and he's gone. I always felt like that should have had like he turns and Bloodshot is gone. I just felt that in the edit. It just should have been. It felt like it just should have been like that. But instead, it just cuts back and like, oh, he's still standing there. Just like little things like that, just kind of like keep dropping it lower and lower and lower for me. Oh God. I'm not quite sure how RSD is not able to track him all the time, because it's kind of like constant having a constant GPS tracker inside your body. I don't know. like it matters at this point. Also worth noting that if they're not together anymore, why would she maintain the name Garrison? Like he searches Gina Garrison, but he's been gone for 5 years. She clearly remarried and had kids. She wouldn't have the last name Garrison anymore. Just a thought. And isn't it just a wild coincidence that they also happen to be in London at the same time? I can't tell what that is. That would have been better in a wide shot. By the way, just to let everybody know, London is never this bright. London is always gray. There's very rarely ever a day that's truly sunny because of the air pressure that's there and how far north it is. Again, 80 yard, because you don't see your mouth move. Now this is the kind of salvation moment where like that's a good little shot. I like that. I like that cutaway. This is the moment where you should feel your heart should sink. In the novelization, it really goes into this in depth. Like he really feels torn up about this. That should be the sinking moment where he really feels torn up. Right there, it's like she says she has a family, therefore she has a husband. Why does she still have the name Garrison? Unless out of wild 1 in a 7 billion chance of coincidence, she's dating somebody that has also the last name of Garrison. I mean, I wrote into my pitch that he uses facial algorithm programs to track where she may be, and he goes to her location. Like that was how he found her, not by her name, but by her appearance. That makes more sense than just tracking her by name because, she would probably change her name. This is supposed to be the moral low point for Bloodshot. And he should be absorbing it, really thinking about it, and then blam. But like, we don't get any time to process it. Like, that should have been the moral low point and the emotional low point of the character. But instead, it's just immediately we're back into another action scene. That's kind of cool. I like that. That is in the book. That he can reallocate his body mass. That is in the comics. And there it is again. That is in the books. It'd be great if they actually held on it longer because, oh god, the editing and the shot composition in this is heinous. This is probably the worst edited scene in the film, to my opinion, because it's so much shaky cam and it's so much. Oh god, that is not London at all. I'm not sure why they couldn't just do that with satellites, because you literally can't do that with satellites, but okay. God, this really is a video game. Yeah, this doesn't feel like London. It feels like the streets of Cape Town. This scene is very disorienting, but the problem is that they should be they know where he is at all times. They're constantly tracking him. It's a comparable scene would be something like the French Connection, the chase scene that's in the French Connection, between the main character of Popeye Doyle and the main villain. I can't remember his name. They're tracking each other through the streets, and they're constantly trying to outmaneuver each other. So there's lots of glass, there's lots of mirrors and reflections. Like they're constantly trying to stave each other off until one can, one either escapes or the other one tracks the other down. it's it's a great sequence. It's a fantastic film. I highly encourage everybody to watch it. Compare that scene to this, and this is just the way you don't do a chase. It's such a mess. I just don't know why this looks like this. Also, I thought that Bloodshot was much stronger and much faster. Why is Dalton able to keep up with him? Why Dalton only loses his legs makes no sense. Why didn't that just like crack his skull open? It's clearly a reshoot. That's a green screen. Yeah. There were some reshoots. That's a green screen reshoot. You can just tell the lighting's not quite the same. This idea is kind of cool. This is kind of a cool idea that you shut him down remotely. Also, worth noting, in the 2014 RoboCop, there is literally a scene that's just like this. There's literally a scene where Gary Oldman's character says the same line, shut him down. Literally the same scene. Literally the same line. I want to die. But this is weird. It's like Harding becomes like this maniacal asshole at this point in the film, really for no reason. It's just like we need to create a villain for the film because the other villains are now gone. I don't know. I'm trying to point out positives when I can, but 6 years of film school, 10 years working on film sets, I have a hard time really cutting this film some slack. Yeah, this is the weirdest scene because this feels like a reshoot dropped into the edit in order to establish that Wiggins and KT get together. But it feels like weeks have passed, but it's only been like a day. And also, it's like Wiggins is now working with a security detail, doing the exact same stuff that the other guys did. How is he aware that Bloodshot hasn't been captured and is going to come after him anytime soon? Because clearly having a security detail didn't help the other guys either. Now, I will say that is odd. That's not Isaac Gonzalez at all. That's, you know, yeah, that's not Isa. I'd love just a film just about her. I would love a film just about her. But okay, that's a nice callback to the Cato killer. But it is worth noting this is a film. This is a PG-13 film where you have smoking, and it's not R-rated. Somehow they got around that. I'm not quite sure how. Hey, another RoboCop 2014 film reference. This is the construct. It's our loading program. Yeah. This scene was literally in the 2014 RoboCop where he Alex Murphy gets dropped into this virtual world for the first time 3 months after he's rebuilt. It's literally the same scene, basically. Part of me wants to give it the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, that looks kind of cool, but it just doesn't feel appropriate for a film about Bloodshot. I prefer if it was more like a film that I really love, David Cronenberg's Existence, where the line between reality and fantasy is blurred. Little things kind of blur the line between the two. Like a table turns into a bed because the characters are in a motel room laying on the bed inside a virtual game pod. Like things like that kind of blur the line between what's real and what's not real. That would be more interesting than just video game shit. And now the movie tries to introduce morals in the third act. It's too late, guys. Is it? I think Dave Wilson, the director of this, is a really nice guy. I only got to meet him for like 20 seconds at New York Comic Con. But he seemed like a nice guy. And I think that had he been allowed to do anything he wanted, to just have full control over the film, this would be a very different movie. I feel like if they had just kept the R rating, allowed the film to be much more graphic, be much more deeply associated with the comics, it may have been a better film. I think that he's still a quality director. I think he's got some good talent, but this was his first live action film, and maybe it was just a little too much for him. I don't know. I don't know. That's an awkward shot. His shoulders look too wide for his head. Did he know she was going to be coming up that elevator? Once again, she's in a crop top. Why? This scene always made me a little uncomfortable. I don't know, just the way he looks at her. I'm just like, eh. Part of me thinks that maybe Dalton was like a rapist or something like that. Just like, ugh, God. Yeah, if Wiggins knew that they were fucking with this guy's brain, then why exactly would he continue to do the same thing that Nick Barris and Martin Axe did? Like, go into hiding, go underground. Don't expose yourself. Don't use credit cards. Don't use cell phones. Like, he's smart enough to know that. And when I'm making criticisms of this film, I don't think my criticisms are in any way incorrect, and I don't think that I'm not trying to shit on any one particular individual. This was a film that was caught in a massive series of production problems. It was like trying to assemble a cathedral in the middle of a hurricane. And this is probably as good as you were going to get it with, regarding the circumstances. I don't hold a grudge against anybody. It's just I'm not so much angry, I'm just disappointed, which is probably worse. Because this could have been amazing. I mean, there's some great ideas here. This idea that like they're recreating this inside of his brain, like this is great. If they had just stuck with it, a little more and just gave it more emotional heart, it would have been better. This really doesn't make any sense at all. Like she just magically appears inside his brain. Like, how does she see what he's seeing? I don't know. It's literally a holodeck from Star Trek. Hey, throw more money in the pot. I mentioned Star Trek. I mean, I don't harbor like any hate against Dave Wilson or Dinesh. I mean, I still love Dinesh. I consider him a friend. You know, I'm looking forward to his new company, his new comics company, Bad Idea. They got some great books on the way. I just feel like this was just. I feel like he was throttled by this by Sony and by other companies involved, and it was really just a series of just not necessarily miscalculations, but missed opportunities. Like I said, Wiggins is pretty good. He's a good character. If this guy was through the entire movie, I would have appreciated it a lot more. This is why in my pitch I made him Martin X, because I made him a main character because he's great. This has never been something that's ever worked in film. The idea of hacking in a film, it's not interesting. It's very dull. This is a nice little moment. I did like this when I saw it in the theater. This is pretty good. I like that. He should have said, "Oh shit." How is he somehow physically stronger than that? I just he's got just like the lower half of his arm. Like that doesn't mean that the rest of his body is strong. Why that's not an actual grenade, I don't know. Now, Seth pointed out in our film rescue that Dalton right now gets double powers. Like he has, that is kind of cool. Dalton basically gets double powers at this point. He gets not just the fact that he's like a tough guy, and the fact that he's also got robotic legs. He also gets robotic arms. What does Tibbs get? Tibbs gets nothing. He gets like a knife. Like Tibbs should have gotten like the Revenants in Doom 2016. He should have gotten like a sniper rifle attachment to his shoulders. He's a sniper. Let him snipe. You know, you want to use these guys effectively. Why Dalton doesn't have this thing the entire movie really doesn't make any sense because it just appears in the last. Oh yeah, look at that. They cover up before he gets up the stairs. Why he doesn't have this the entire movie, I really don't know. RG? What is that? Is clearly ADR from that they took that audio file from when he was in the car in the opening of the movie. That the audio doesn't sound right. It clearly sounds like a different location. You can just tell the echo is not quite right. Just do all these people just kind of hang out? Yeah, that would have blown out the glass. If these guys had fought side by side in the first act, this fight would have had a little bit more depth to it. As it stands, these guys don't have enough. This fight is a good idea. I don't know why he did that. If this fight is a good idea, but it doesn't quite resonate emotionally because they haven't had enough scenes together. They haven't like had a real emotional connection. Dalton hates Bloodshot. Well, why? Never really is established because they don't feel like in the book it said that Dalton is willing. He's a willing participant to be the next Bloodshot. Oh, this CGI. He was a willing participant that he wanted to be the next Bloodshot. He wanted to take the nanites and be the next one willingly. Which begs the question, why wouldn't you just do that? Just let him do it. So why would you continue to wreck Garrison's brain? That is a long jump for somebody that has no physical improvements to their legs. Ow, ow, ow. Ooh, that's bad CGI. Ooh. A little too much. It's a little too much CGI. I'm starting to think that maybe, I don't know for sure, but he's wearing green shoes. I don't know if he was meant to also have bionic legs because it looks like the kind of green they would use for chroma keying. Because that's what they did to Sam Heughan's legs, is that they digitally remove his legs and then they put in the false bionic legs. I'm starting to think they had meant to do that with Tibbs as well. Oh, PG-13 fuck. You get one fuck per PG-13 movie. They give it to Dalton, and he doesn't. You don't even see his mouth move when he says it. God. I would love this scene a lot more if I was emotionally invested. It just feels like this whole fight scene isn't quite earned because I don't feel as emotionally invested with any of these people. It never quite gets there for me. There's a funky edit coming up right here. He's still he's already up on his feet. Like there's too much that's been jump. There's too much of a jump in time and space right there between those two shots. Lots of CGI. I don't know. I feel like this whole thing wasn't earned. It's too absurd. Like you have two guys fighting in an elevator and you don't rip off Total Recall, really? And here it comes. Fucking finally, you get to actual Bloodshot. There's really no reason why this happens. It's just, hey, we need to have Bloodshot show up in our Bloodshot movie. He finally gets the white skin and the red eyes. It's not even totally white. It's like pale. The original ending was that Dalton and Bloodshot were going to fall into the pool that's in the bottom area of RST, and they were going to fight in the pool, and then Bloodshot was going to use his nanites to take over Dalton's bionic arms, wrap him up, and then he was going to just push him into the pool and he was going to drown because he couldn't swim or get back out of the water. That would have been a better ending because it would have been emotionally satisfying. That is in the novelization. It just doesn't. This just doesn't really register for me because they don't feel like they have enough emotional catharsis between their fight. It's kind of cool for action, I guess, but I would prefer emotional catharsis. This is all reshot. This is all Vancouver. It's so gray. Finally. And this is actually not Vin Diesel. This is actually CGI Vin Diesel because he was not available at the time. I think he was off doing Fast 10, whatever one they're on at this point. Part of me starts to think that the reason he did this movie is because he needs to have another franchise under his belt because Riddick only has one film left in the tank. Fast and Furious only has one film left in the tank in the mainline franchise. All that would be left is Triple X, which may only get one more movie, so he needs another franchise. Maybe that's the reason he did this in the first place. I don't know. At one point, Jared Leto was attached, and then he dropped out. The big problem I have with this is that we've already seen him regenerate so many times that this effect kind of got old by this point. It's like Transformers, ironically, because with Transformers, the effect of them transforming from vehicle into a robot gets old pretty quick. Also, they say he's running out of power. Well, look at that car that's right behind him. Go over to it, put your fingers onto the positive and negative charges of the battery and recharge real quick. They literally did that 30 minutes ago. It just, the protein element would add a lot more because it would add precedent to the fact that he can't regenerate right away. And that is all CGI Vin Diesel. That is not him. This is kind of cool. The idea that he can use his nanites to eat away at things. This is in the books. The nanites can eat away at things. It's referred to as the Harada Protocol. And we're back to Vin Diesel. And 1 minute, 5 seconds of screen time for actual Bloodshot in this film. Yeah. 1 minute, 5 seconds. Why would you market the film like that? With that image? Yeah. I mean, what is Ray Garrison's personality outside of he's a good fighter? Because of that, I don't know who he is as a person. Because of that, it doesn't really feel emotionally satisfying. This ending, this sort of super upbeat happy ending it doesn't fit with this movie. It really doesn't fit, in my opinion. It's too much. It's too far of a whiplash in the opposite direction. I mean, they imply that it's not real, it's not happening, it's all in his head. But if it's not in his head, then where is it? Is he in the afterlife? Just piles of cash just laying out. I guess if they're going to have a sequel, they're going to go off and be a team or something like that. But I don't know. This doesn't feel like it fits with a Bloodshot film. It's too upbeat. It's too chipper. It's too happy. It's like the ending of Terminator Genesis, where it doesn't emotionally fit with what should be a grim movie. So that he's basically invincible. It's like that basically removes all tension if there ever is a sequel because they're like, oh well, you can just keep regenerating over and over and over and over and over again. Like he never has to recharge. He never has to fuel up. They really did make him basically a god by the end of this film, and it really does hurt the potential for a sequel because you can't build off of this. Why does he need a walkie-talkie to go talk to KT? Why can't he just step out? It's probably because she wasn't there. Yeah. And there's that Steve Jablonsky delayed guitar again. Just Jablonski's music reminds me too much of like Mass Effect's music, the game Mass Effect. It reminds me too much of that. Doesn't feel like it fits here. I swear, if this wasn't called Bloodshot, I would think it was one of the Fast and Furious movies. I really would just think that's what it was. I don't think my criticism of this film are too harsh or undeserved. I think this film it really does. Even the final line from Bloodshot, Vin Diesel is dubbed. Oh God, yeah. I mean, so the actual script was originally written by Jeff Wadlow on spec back in 2010. The Valiant comic book. That's bizarre. Hey, there's a copy of issue number 1. Um, but it was written. Yay, Dinesh! I love you, Dinesh. But all these different people. What? I'm not sure why Matthew Vaughn is involved in this. But in terms of this film, the script was originally written on spec by Jeff Wadlow back in 2010, and it was a long road to get to production on this. Originally, it was going to come out in 2017, part of a big crossover universe. Jim May, I'm going to smack you one day. Originally, it was supposed to be directed by David Leitch and Chad Stahelski. They got in the job right after they did the first John Wick, and they got hired in 2015. Eventually, they dropped out. And then Dave Wilson got brought in, I think after Love, Death, and Robots became a success. But it just feels like it was a long road to get to this, and I just don't feel like it just all along the way, things fell apart. Like Dinesh was ousted from Valiant. He got let go from the company. Dan Mintz came in and took over. DMG bought out the company. DMG, Digital Media Group. That's an odd final shot to have. He's called Bloodshot in the credits, but he's not referred to as Bloodshot in the film, with the exception of like off-screen edits. It's bizarre. But yeah, originally it was supposed to be the John Wick guys, and then they left, and just one thing after another. It was supposed to be all these different movies, like an Exo-Man of War film from the Russo brothers, Quantum and Woody TV show, also produced by the Russo brothers. Joel McHale was going to play Woody. A Shadow Man movie was in development. A Faith movie was in development. Harbinger was in development. Then Harbinger got sold off to Paramount. A million different things went wrong. Hive Mind, that's Dinesh's company he works with, yeah. But yeah, just so many things just went wrong, and it just, like I said, it's like trying to assemble a cathedral in a hurricane. Hey, Jason Cothry. Jason Cothry and Dinesh bought the rights for Valiant back in the early 2000s for like $50,000. The rights went up for auction, and they bought the rights, and they rebuilt the company from the ground up. And they pushed hard to rebuild the company. And that 2012 run, from like 2012 to late 2016, 2017, the books are stupendous. There's going to be one or two flops in there every now and again. Dead drop. But for the most part, they were really, really solid stories, really solid books. After Dinesh left and other people ended up taking over, certain books kind of got shoved to the wayside. Harbinger Wars 2 was a big casualty of that. There were some others in there as well that didn't quite pan out the way that they should have. Overall, I think the books are still doing okay. There's some I don't care for, but I do think the current Bloodshot books, written by Tim Seeley, they're all right. They're pretty good. They're edited by Lisa Hawkins, who I really like. It feels very 1990s action stuff, but this movie, it really is this film is kind of another casualty of said buyout. It does feel a bit like it's a casualty of too many people trying to do multiple things with the same project. So it's a shame that it didn't, and then COVID happened, and then everything got quarantined because they were pushing hard for this to be the beginning of a universe, and then it just all fell apart. COVID was kind of like the final nail in the coffin for this because, I mean, granted, I saw it in the theater with, Seth and several other people, but just, it really was like Valiant just couldn't catch a break. This movie just could not catch a break. And it really was a shame that it just didn't, the reviews started coming out 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. It still sits at around 30%. That's not good. And like I said in the Film Rescue episode, it hurts the brand. Like, Marvel and DC, if they make a bad film, they can recover. I mean, DC recovered from Batman v Superman. They recovered from that. Aquaman made like $800 million. Like, Shazam did pretty good. Birds of Prey, it did okay. Like, they recovered. They did fine. Wonder Woman 2 is gonna make $1 billion. I'll guarantee it whenever it comes out. But yeah, it's a shame. This should have been truly amazing, and it unfortunately it just wasn't. There's some things I like in it. There's some things I like, but it could have been better. Yeah, it's a shame. Oh well. There it is. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Yeah. Hey, there's my favorite people: Bob Layton, Kevin Van Hook, Don Perlin, Josh Dysart, Hunter Goranson, Louis Rosa, Tom Muller, Warren Simons. Those are all original Valiant people. Why Dwayne Swazinski's name is not listed in these credits, I have no idea. Dwayne Swazinski was the guy who wrote the 2012 run. He basically, a lot of that stuff is in this film. I don't know why that his name was not mentioned. I don't know. But that's my final thoughts on Bloodshot. It's a film that really, really, really wanted to be great, but it just couldn't quite get there. I was the target audience, and they missed the target. They missed the target. I don't hold a grudge against anybody. It was a series of horrible situations that got involved in it. I know Dinesh is proud of this film. I know everybody that worked on it is proud of this film. There's that Valiant logo. I'm not sure why they changed the color on it, though. It's usually black, white, and red. Not sure why they made it blue. But yeah, and there was supposed to be a post-credit scene involving Toyo Harada, and that was going to lead into the Harbinger film, and that was going to be the reason why Bloodshot was created, and they couldn't do it because Bloodshot is now separated from Harbinger, because Harbinger is now owned by Paramount. Like I said, it's a series of horrible circumstances. But, oh well. And that's all I have to say about Bloodshot. So, thank you for listening, and good night.